Hey, Sin Bin podcast viewership. Unfortunately, me and Mike are still super busy this week, but that doesn't mean we can't bring you guys any content. I'm going to bring you guys a quick recap of the games we've missed since we've been busy and a upcoming preview of this weekend starting tomorrow. The 3-game weekend they're going to have is going to be pretty big for them moving forward. So before we get into that, let's get into this recap real quick. First, when we left it off, we had 3 straight losses to the Maine Mariners. It didn't get much better after that. They had a loss at Iowa and then 2 straight losses at Toledo, one where they blew a lead. So it wasn't the greatest showing and a 6-game losing streak. Fortunately, next game at home against Utah was a W, a 3-2 win off of the back of Mikhail Abramov scoring 2 in that game. So huge performance for Mikhail Abramov, getting them their first win in 7 games. That was on March 6th. Then on the 10th, it was the Bison's Education Day. It was the first ever sellout for the Bison, so huge moment there for the Bison, and sure enough, they ended up just squeaking out a win at the very end. They were down 3-2, and then with 3 minutes left, 2 straight goals to get the win. Huge performance from the Bison there to top the Fuel, who they are in direct competition with for those playoff spots right now. Now, beyond that, right after that Fuel game, they faced the Wings at home, and it was not great. A 6-2 loss. That was on the 13th, and the playoff chances started to slip away after that, you thought. But right after that, they played the Fort Wayne Komets at home, and that one was an overtime win. The overtime game winner coming from new recent addition Grant Porter, who has been nearly a point per game, if not at a point per game, since joining the team. So a huge addition out of Canisius College there for Grant Porter. Joining the team also Parker Lindauer from Union College joined the team as well. Now, after that overtime win against the Komets, they traveled to Cincinnati and unfortunately had a 2-1 loss against the Cyclones. Really rough for their playoff standing, but they are still in a playoff spot after that game. They then have a good weekend against the Heartlanders. 3 games, 2 wins. Could have been 3 wins, but unfortunately just weren't able to keep it going for that 3rd game. But especially that 2nd game, a 7-2 stomping of the Iowa Heartlanders. So the Heartlanders got their get back in game 3, but a statement for the Bison, especially in those first 2 games. So huge for the Bison. They are currently holding on to that 4th playoff spot for dear life. Both the Cyclones and the Wings both have a game in hand and are only 2 points back from the Bison for that 4th and final playoff spot, and they are about 5 points back from the Fuel from overtaking them. So it is going to be a tight race for the final 2 playoff spots in the Central this year. Definitely going to be interesting to watch, which makes this weekend very important. This weekend they're going to be traveling to Fort Wayne to face the Komets, and once again going to Toledo for back-to-back away games. I'm not going to tell you this is going to be an easy weekend. This is going to be an incredibly hard weekend. This is against the 2 top teams in the division, and you're really fighting, hanging on by a thread to maintain your playoff standing. As if it wasn't important enough that the 2 games after these 3 games will be 2 home games against the Fuel and the Wings. So those 2 are basically must-wins when you're competing directly against those teams for a playoff spot. So while this weekend isn't a must-win, you really want to keep that playoff spot this week. And against really hard opponents, that might be pretty hard. So these 3 games really should show what the Bison, what they're made of. Are they a playoff team? Well, they're going to have to beat playoff teams if they want to stay in that playoff spot. This weekend will be huge for both morale and to see where this team truly is at. If they can maintain a playoff spot and win on April 3rd and 5th against the Fuel and Wings respectively, they may solidify a playoff spot for themselves by either overtaking the Fuel or really putting space between them and the Cyclones and the Wings. It will be huge to see these 2 weekends back-to-back in particular to where the Bison will be in the standings, because right after that, there's only 6 games left, and it's only against the Swamp Rabbits and the Heartlanders, so there's not a ton of wiggle room left in the season. This weekend will be huge if they can keep a playoff spot against hard teams, and they can really beat those teams they're playing against next weekend, the Bison could very well solidify a playoff spot this year. If not, if they have a rough weekend this weekend, which wouldn't be entirely out of the question against two very good teams, and fall out of a playoff position, those two games on the 3rd and 5th become even more important to put some space between them and the Wings, or at that point, maybe they need to be climbing back to face the Wings. So this weekend, a huge one for the Bison. Make sure to tune in and catch them on either Flow Sports or Bison Radio Network. Definitely get it, at least check the highlights and the stats for those games. It's going to be a huge weekend for the Bison, depending on what they can do against playoff caliber teams. And that's going to be it for this Sin Bin podcast check-in. We will try and get an episode or two out before the season truly closes, so look out for those. We're not gone. We're just busy. But thank you guys so much for watching. This is obviously a quicker one. And we'll see you in the next one.